How'd you do on your playoff picks?
Not that great.
I won tonight.
I've been a go big or go home, so I won on a couple, but lost on most. But makes up for it, so.
Yeah, I have not been very successful. I suppose I'm getting better, and maybe it's just because I'm paying more attention. First off, I did not realize that you could change your amount of money that you could pick.
Oh, yeah.
So I just thought I was just stuck at $20 every time. So I was like, dang, this is going to get expensive real quick.
Yeah.
Well, then I realized you could go down in increments of 5. So I won tonight, back up. I'm not back up to my original investment of $20 or $40, but
there you go.
I'm back up to like $13 or $14. So
yeah. I'm still playing with house money, but down from where I've been. So we'll see. Tried basketball again and didn't work out, so I'll never do it again.
But basketball's weird, man. So I went with the other night. I had Klay Thompson, and then two other Derek Lively, the Mavericks, and then there was just a guy who'd been really putting up points for the Blazers. And Kyrie and Luka were out, so I was like, all right, I'll go with Klay and Derek Lively. Derek Lively hit in the first quarter. The guy from the Blazers scored 27 in the first half. Klay had 2 points. So I was like, man, I don't know. And it was like a 13.5, so he only had to score 14, which for him is no big deal.
Yeah.
But that night, for whatever reason, he did not hit it.
My crutch with sports betting is I want to bet all of my legs in the same game. I like that. But I've been successful when I haven't done that, when I've gone over like 3 games. Because I'm trying to get 6 legs in each game. And like you're trying to pick 6 things that are going to happen in a game between 2 teams, you know. Almost all of them hit.
That's really tough.
Almost all of them hit except for 1 leg. And like two of mine today. I never do. I'm always go big.
I'm not. I can't do that, man.
I'm always go big. So that's another crutch. So I am betting all or nothing, and I'm betting 6 legs all in the same game. So what I need to do is next week for the championship round, I should bet at least on both games and build it out over both games. But I'll probably do one tomorrow night for the national championship.
I'm planning on betting on that too.
But I may try not to pick 6 legs. I may just try to go with 3 or 4.
So can you, on the same app that we use, I don't know if you want to say it or not, I don't care, but can you pick like prop bets? I haven't dove that deep into it yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what it is.
No. I'm talking about like how long the Star Spangled Banner is going to be, or how many times they're going to show Taylor Swift.
No, it's all specific to things specific to the game, the sport. So it doesn't have those.
Okay, so the first couple drags, I'm not digging it.
You don't like it?
I mean, it's a cigar, so I'm never going to complain too much. But
I'm on my regular, the Olivia Serie V, but it is really dry.
It's the weather too.
That's pretty dry.
So this may be a 2 cigar night. Though this one is maybe I'll let burn down.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we've got the Bills just won by 2. So I went into this game tonight. I wouldn't have been surprised whichever team won.
Same.
But I was surprised that Washington won.
Man,
I expected them to be competitive, but I didn't expect them to win.
That was back and forth the whole game. And that was I turned it on and it felt like it was like 30-20.
Yeah. I had an inkling that the Rams might show up the Lions. I kind of thought that might have been a possibility. But I don't think anyone really expected the Lions not to win, so that was an upset. And the Chiefs game went exactly how I thought it would be. I thought it'd be sloppy in the first half, and they'd get their act together and win, not by a lot, but they would win the game.
Man,
they haven't played in 3 weeks.
I know you're a Chiefs fan.
Yeah,
I know. So I'm treading lightly, but some of the calls that were called.
Yeah, there were a couple.
Like Patrick Mahomes has got to either commit to giving himself up. That one call that they took the helmet to helmet.
Yeah.
That he's like dancing around and can't really decide what he's going to do. I just don't like it when he does that. And I know they all do it, But like if that's Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, like there was one tonight where I thought Allen they were going to call it, and it seemed to me to be the same call as what Mahomes got, and they didn't call it.
Goff got laid out too.
Oh yes,
so that was
I
huge.
saw that.
What the guy on TV was saying was
Mahomes is a pet of the NFL, so they're protecting him.
No,
okay, sorry.
Yeah, it used to not be that way. Calls go both ways. I need to rewatch the game. There were two of the roughing the passer calls that I didn't agree with, and I think I need to rewatch the game. I think on one of them there was no score. I think on the other one it was a field goal.
Gotcha.
So take those two calls away, and you take 3 points off the board. They still win the game.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's like
and
now there are guys on Twitter and the socials, all with 10 different calls the refs missed, but man, that happens in every game. Like
that was the only
my
one.
favorite team.
That was the only one I didn't like.
My favorite team is the Des caught it team. So like, don't talk to me about.
We didn't talk about that
calls.
last week. It was the 10-year anniversary. My buddy texted me and was like, "Hey, are y'all going to talk about this on the pod?" I was like, "Probably not," because we're both still depressed about it 10 years later.
Exactly. So I understand, and calls go both ways, and teams are hurt and helped by calls. It was a little one-sided in the Chiefs-Texans game, but if you look at those drives, for the ones that were really one-sided, I don't think it would have changed the output of the game. But also, the rules expert on the broadcast was saying that it is reviewable, but if there was actual contact with the quarterback, then they can't pick up the flag.
Interesting.
So
I think I saw that on X later on.
They have the option if like somebody, the quarterback say, you see this all the time, not all the time, but sometimes quarterback gives himself up, he's sliding, and like the defender who's coming in to tackle just flies over the top of him.
Yes.
Still avoids him but flies over the top. Like in those cases, they can pick up the flag, but if there's actual contact, they can't. So,
well, it's 100% a judgment call.
And I don't think they're going to change it. Like, I think a lot of people are upset. Like, throughout the season, there have been a lot of calls like that either haven't got called or did get called. They're not going to change that on the quarterback.
Oh, I don't think so either. I do think, though, there were a couple of those hip tackles where they slid down and tackled them. Like, they start high, slide down in the hip, and then they roll. There were a couple of those this weekend. I noticed there were one in the first game today. Yeah. There was one today. And I thought, ooh, that could have been that. I don't know, remember exactly what it's called, but the sliding hip tackle is what all I call it. Yeah. Are you paying attention to the Rangers yet?
No. I mean, I saw the broadcast announcement, but that was it.
What do you think about that? Do you know what Victory Plus is?
I know it's $100. That's what I heard. That's it.
So that's where the Stars are.
Okay.
Right now. And
so you get other stuff besides the Rangers.
Yeah.
It's not like NFL Sunday Ticket. That's all. Okay.
No. Well, I say that right now, Stars are free, so it doesn't cost anything. So, are you going to pay it?
No, because I don't have a lot of desire to watch Rangers games. I listen to them. I don't watch baseball that much.
See, I don't.
I'll watch the playoffs.
I watch the Rangers as a background noise.
Yeah, I'll listen to it as background noise.
So that's going to be. I guess I'm just going to have to do that.
I'll just turn the radio on. Yeah.
And so this is like more than just the Rangers, but like we pay for DirecTV stream or whatever. Because it's getting to the point to where it's so dadgum expensive if you have Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, which is all, I guess that's the same combined package. And then you got Paramount and Peacock and Netflix. I don't know if I said that one. But then you got, now I'm trying to pay for DirecTV just so I can have regular TV. You know what I mean? DirecTV stream, not
we have,
this.
We have Hulu for our regular TV. Hulu Live. I think all in all, because we do also have Netflix, we have to have Disney Plus because of the kids and Marvel and all of that, and we have Peacock and we have Paramount.
So you're paying for a cable subscription?
Yeah, it's like $150.
Jesus Christ!
So, and I think if we went to Dish or Direct, that's what it would be. But because we still wouldn't be able to cancel Disney.
Yeah,
and those things like that because you still have to have that. So Hulu's like $87 or $89 a month for Hulu Live.
Oh, and I forgot Max.
Yeah. We have Max. But I think we get Max for free because we have AT&T phones. Same. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just frustrating because it's like I already pay so much money. And that's just, I know it's only $100 for the whole season. And like my brother-in-law said that, well, that's only $1 a game. Which is...
It's less than $1 a game.
You're right. But I think they're going to broadcast a lot more on the like if it's on the national
Okay.
thing, there's going to be some like they do with the Mavericks where they put some of them on local channels.
Yeah.
I just think that they should, for the local broadcast, it should be broadcast over the air.
Yeah, it should be on like Channel 21, something like that.
Well, the Mavericks are on 29.
Yeah.
So like you can't get that through DirecTV. You have to have a
Antenna.
which I'll invest $40 for an antenna if I can get it for free.
One.
So do you have it out here, or is it all over?
It's in my attic.
Okay. Yeah, and we have one TV that has it, and it's our upstairs TV. So that way, if I want to watch the Mavericks, I can watch them in my room and leave it alone. Now I'll move it downstairs if I'm going to watch in the garage, but like that's how I watched all the games this past summer in the Western Conference Finals. I watched them all over the air, which I may just go back to that. I don't know. It frustrates me.
Yeah,
One of those stupid things that you get frustrated about that doesn't matter.
I'm not going to care about watching Stars games. I'm not going to care about watching Mavericks games. Like if we go to a sports bar or something and the game is on, I'm watching and paying attention. But
Right.
I'm not turning on a Mavs game at home. I'm not that big of a fan until we get to the playoffs. I'm not watching hockey ever unless it's on at a sports bar or you get in the playoffs. Like I'll watch the Stars when they get there. Kind of the same. I'm not really an NBA or a NHL fan until it gets to the playoffs. Baseball I listen to over the summer. When football starts, that kind of trails off a little bit, especially if we're not making a playoff run. And then I will watch, like, get through the divisional series. I'll watch the championship series, no matter who's playing, and I'll watch the World Series.
Yeah, same.
But then football, I'm watching every single game.
And you know, there's been a lot of talk in the sports world about oversaturation. Has the sports market oversaturated itself? I just don't really care about. I take that back. I watch the Mavericks anytime that I have the opportunity to. Like I don't go back and rewatch a game, but like if they're on, I'm turning it on. The Rangers were the same because it was on Bally's or whatever it was at the time, it's Fox Sports Southwest, and I would turn it on and watch it. But I think I'm just going to listen to it on the radio. I do enjoy listening to the radio for the Rangers games more than I can.
No deal.
I do too. And so like I enjoy that. Like when they won the World Series, I listened to the broadcast and had it synced to my TV, and I was listening while it was, which put me a little bit delayed, just a hair. And then I'll just turn off ESPN Sports updates. But where do we want to start?
From the top.
So I know it's at the bottom, but can we start at TikTok?
Yeah.
So now it's back.
That's probably the more
it's back
pressing news.
So I have a theory behind this. So kind of where we are today is January 19th. It went off about 9 o'clock on the 18th, and came back at some point this afternoon, which is the 19th, a little less than 24 hours. So here's my theory behind it. Okay, first off, I think the ban is dumb, and I know we're on opposing sides of this. But I go back to what we talked about last week. If we're going to stop the Chinese from getting our stuff, then we need to do it all the way across the board, right? Just like what we talked about in several other things that we discussed last week, right? If it's good for one thing, it has to be good for everything.
Right.
So if we're going to ban them from getting our data on TikTok, then we also need to ban them from owning farmland in the United States, right? That's kind of become my opinion. I'm not married to that opinion, but at the moment, that's my opinion. So here's my thought. I want you to respond to this. This is one of Biden's last hoorahs. Okay? He's like, you know what? Okay, Democrats, we voted for this. We're going to give all the glory to Trump. Because now Trump, did you see, I don't know if I sent it to you, but the TikTok said, okay, the Trump administration has allowed us an extension. And like the first thing on it was the Trump administration.
Right.
So I can't help but wonder, is this the last Biden hoorah as he's leaving office saying, okay, the Democrats have officially banned the Democrat-run presidency, the Democrat-run office bans TikTok, but let's give Trump the glory and he comes back, even though it was started by Trump in 2020, right? Am I digging too much into it?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a possibility. Because we've talked about that. Some of the moves that Biden made towards the end just made it seem like he was trying to torpedo the DNC. I think as far as Biden's inaction, I don't think they have a platform or leadership to be able to make that decision on what to do. And so it's very much we're stuck in a stalemate, not going to do anything because they don't know what to do. They don't know what the polling and other casino, how it's going to help them in the election, which is kind of dumb. They should know. But basically, the way I understand it, what happened is, of course, Trump's nobody yet, not until noon tomorrow, right? Because today's the 19th.
Is that going in that camera?
It's fine.
Is my smoke okay?
Not until noon tomorrow. So, but he basically told TikTok and the other companies that are involved with the distribution of TikTok to the phones that they would not be prosecuted if they remained open. And so basically, they're going to operate under that assumption while he's not even president yet for 12 hours tomorrow, because they're not going to shut down. And then the law, because it was a law, it's not an executive order that Biden did. Right. It's a law, and the law allows the sitting president, whoever that may be, to grant a 90-day extension to give more time for the company to be bought by U.S. interest.
And there's some big ones out there trying to purchase it.
Mr. Wonderful offered $20 million cash.
Who is Mr.
$20 billion? Sorry.
20, I was about to say 20. Are you talking about Elon?
No.
Or who are you talking about?
Kevin O'Leary.
Oh,
Shark Tank.
Well, Mr. Beast as well.
Oh, really?
I don't know his amount, but I mean, he offered a large.
They're saying though the valuation might be double that.
A 40 billion?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Somewhere between 35 and 40 billion. So Kevin O'Leary offered 20 billion cash. I mean, it's a legit, serious offer. He's in talks to try to buy it. So
well, here's the next question: how much did I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but how much did Elon buy X for?
44
billion.
Yeah.
Man, that's a lot of money.
So that would mean TikTok would be worth a little bit less than X, and I can't imagine that. You would think TikTok is worth more.
I would think so too.
Yeah.
I would think it would be worth 100 billion. I mean, just in terms of importance, And the other thing that was interesting as you were looking at the reaction of some of these influencers, I will say, it seemed like the more left-leaning ones were a lot more upset. There were some ones that I follow that are more conservative, and they were upset too. Like, I don't want to say that but most of the more conservative ones were like, well, this sucks. Oh well, on to the next adventure. But some of the ones who were actually in the White House trying to promote the Democratic Party literally were having full meltdowns yesterday.
Oh,
and it's interesting to watch and kind of sad.
Yeah. Yeah, the effect of it, I think, is a little bit. It is interesting for somebody like me that doesn't use it to be kind of on the outside looking in, being like, wow, like what could be taken away from me that would make me react this way?
I mean, okay, so we have a TikTok.
And I did have 16 high school girls in the house.
When you said that
over the weekend.
Oh Lord, I heard the scream from his house.
So we were in the van. We hosted our church had a youth retreat. We hosted the high school girls because I have a high school girl, my oldest daughter, and so we had 16 high school girls in our house the whole weekend. And Saturday night, when they all opened up their TikTok, because they're on a youth retreat, so they get their phones at like certain times, right? It's restricted, right? They all got their phones for kind of a break before the nighttime, and they're like, I mean, one girl was crying.
Oh man!
I mean, losing it, and they were like calling their moms.
Did I send you the stuff on X of people calling 911?
Yeah, saw that too. And so I was a little bit surprised by that, but it's kind of funny, TikTok is popular because people have a very short attention span, so that's what I'm banking on. This not being an issue next year, but I do believe it's going to get resolved. I don't think they're going. I don't think in the end it's going to go away.
Yeah,
but I heard an interesting take from, gosh, I can't think of this guy's name, but his take was if ByteDance does not sell to allow its TikTok to continue in the U.S., then that does prove the point a little bit that it was just a Chinese spying operation. So if China's not going to be able to spy anymore, then there's no use for it to be bought by someone else if that's its primary purpose. So it'll be interesting if they allow it to be sold.
Okay, so let's repeat that again, because so if ByteDance refuses to sell
right
to an American ownership, then it was 100% a spy. Okay, I can buy that.
Yeah,
I can buy it. But see, that was hold on, before I want to revisit a thought that I had just a second ago. The reason that it upset me, and I'm not like calling 911 or losing sleep over it, but like we're trying to build our following and we're trying to promote ourselves as our podcast, and I had put a lot of time in learning how to use it, right? And so that was my frustration, not necessarily that it was hey, I'm sad that this app is going away. It's a lot of effort, and it took a lot of time for me to learn how to make it. And like we were starting to grow, and we're starting to get a few more views, not a ton,
right?
But we're getting more eyes on what we're doing, and it's like, man, now all that work has gone down the drain. But I think that at least gives me a vision of what it was supposed to be protecting. Like I kept telling you, like it just doesn't make sense. Okay, so what? It's a spy operation. Like, if that is legitimately the only reason it's being banned, I can't accept that, because I know there will be then that doesn't give us, why didn't we shoot down the balloon? Right? Why are we not being more active if the drones truly are what they're saying they are, which is spies? Why are we not being more active? And why is this issue? So that is I haven't heard that perspective yet, and I appreciate that.
And I've also been surprised by, so I don't use it, right? It's not one of my social apps, but I have people that I follow that are funny, people that post funny stuff, but right. I interact with them. I see their stuff on Facebook or Instagram.
Correct.
And so it's been interesting to me to see their reaction of like, this is my livelihood.
Correct.
And I'm like, well, I interact with you I see your stuff still on Instagram. I'm assuming you'll still put out content. I'll still see your,
right.
Like Justin Nunley is hilarious.
He was one of the ones I was going to talk about today.
Yeah. And he's a hilarious guy, but I only see his stuff on Instagram or Facebook.
But his following on TikTok is like 3 times the amount as his other platforms.
And it seems like the payout in TikTok is much higher as well.
Correct. Especially if you're part of that creator fund.
Yeah. So,
and it's not, I don't know how much you've paid attention to our TikTok. It's not super hard to be a part of it. Now, we're still very far away from being able to do something like that, to be a part of that creator fund, but we're taking steps in the right direction. Does that make sense? Like, we're nowhere near him, right? We're nowhere near some of the others that are out there that are making thousands of dollars a week. So you can imagine, like, for that guy, Dunley, like, he has other things going, and this is what he does for fun, and he worked at it and built over 5-10 years. Not necessarily TikTok also, but yeah, it's a livelihood for some people. Like one of the students that I used to coach, him and his wife started one. Her last name's Marler, and like I think they both quit their jobs and worked on it full time, and they have a family, and so I think that they've branched out a little bit now that they're a little bit further along.
And if anybody just doesn't, like, the short story of how this works is when you post those things on social, you're driving traffic to that social network and you're getting paid for it, basically.
Correct.
Because the social networks are also putting up ads.
Correct.
And so essentially you can make one video, post it to all the different channels.
Correct.
And one of those channels, apparently the one that pays the most for that content for a lot of these people, is now being gone away. So you still have the Instagram, the Facebook, and
YouTube Shorts.
Like, you still have the revenue coming in from those social networks, but the TikTok one was the big one. So,
and I don't know if I completely buy the First Amendment argument. I don't know if I completely buy that. So I'm not married to the argument that, hey, this is a freedom of speech thing. Because if it is that, okay, then why are we banning it? But I like what you just said about if they don't sell it, then it 100% is a propaganda piece for the Chinese.
Yeah. it'll be interesting to see, but it's 90 days. So,
And that's not a long time.
it's not a long time to get a deal done. But also, there is, like, the president is not the attorney general, but he is the chief executive of the country. And if he makes a point that they're not going to prosecute violators of this particular crime now that it's a law, that might also give a little more time. Like, I think if there's a deal in the works in 90 days, I don't know if TikTok goes dark until it's actually inked and done, or if it's, I don't think it's going to, because you have a lot of people supporting it. I mean, essentially the only way to really walk it all the way back is to repeal the law. I don't think they'll do that either. I just think they'll find a U.S. buyer. Now, Trump said he has 50% ownership worked out already. So
yeah, and I think that that's a good thing. I think that it goes back also to what I said last week, is this really affects the younger generation.
Yeah.
Right. And they, like, just like I've seen a lot of people saying, now obviously this is a good comparison, but not the same magnitude. But like when MySpace went away,
yeah,
I mean, it still actually does exist, but like, I mean, I saw several people saying like, "Hey, where's Tom? You know, where's Tom to save us?" That's an old man joke, by the way.
It's an old man joke.
Those that are listening that are probably under the age of 35 won't get that joke.
That's what we had.
So Bondi was the.
I want to play something real quick.
Okay.
And I'm gonna find this, because we were talking a second ago in this decision about Biden and what it means. Did you see the speaker's interview on DC Free Press?
Yes.
I want to play it.
I was wondering if you had watched that yet, because it was today or late last night that I saw it. This morning or late last night.
So
I do stand by it, and I say this without any personal animus at all. I mean, in some ways, I actually kind of feel sorry for Joe Biden. I mean, he's in the twilight years of his life. He is not, obviously, has not been in charge for some time. And I know this by personal observation, and now the whole world knows it. And it's been very, very concerning to me over the last, year and a half since I've had this position.
Can you tell us a story when you say personal observation? What kind
well,
of
I
thing
mean,
did you see?
it's public now because the Wall Street Journal got it and put it on the front page. But January a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, I had been asked. I became speaker in October 2023, and there were all sorts of big national security concerns and everything going on. And I started requesting a meeting with the president because I'm kind of old school. I'm a constitutional law guy. The Speaker of the House should be able to talk to the president, especially in times of great national interest and calamity. But they wouldn't let me meet with him, and his staff kept giving me excuses. This went on for like 8 or 9 weeks. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't have time. What are you talking about? I'm second in line of the presidency. He has time. I need to talk to him. We had, I can't say the classified parts, but we had some big national concerns at the time that I was losing sleep over. Finally, I just went to the Hill Press Corps and I said, the president is not being allowed to meet with the speaker. There's a problem. So they started putting pressure on him. Long story short, they finally relented. They invited me to the White House. I show up and I realize it's actually an ambush, because it's not just me and the president. It's also Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem, the CIA director, everybody. And then, so I walked in the Oval and, I know what this is. They're going to hotbox the speaker on Ukraine funding. That's what it was.
Okay, so one of the things, I want to listen to the rest of it, but I want to respond to that. So the interesting part about the Ukraine funding is when this is all over, we're going to find out that this may have been the biggest Ponzi scheme. This war may have been the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. Mm-hmm. And we're going to find that it may be into the trillions of dollars that was gone. So if you can keep going, keep going.
Yeah, and just to keep it, it's a podcast. It's the Free DC Press, and it's the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, telling the story that happened in the Oval Office a year ago, last January.
This is probably third week of January. We sit down, we're in the midst of it, and the whole conversation, and I'm going, we don't need to have this conversation. The president reaches over just like this. We're sitting right next to the fireplace in the Oval, and he grabs my arm and he says, the speaker and I just need a couple minutes together. Would y'all just leave us alone? And I looked up on the faces of some of the staff standing around the wall, and they're like, oh, no, he did it. So he called it. He's the commander-in-chief. So everybody leaves, and he and I are standing awkwardly in the middle of the Oval Office, right over the rug by that coffee table. And I said, Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard and I think you know, and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? Like, I don't understand, you know, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, you know. And he looks at me stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order, like, you know, 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're gonna conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security. It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? Like, I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
That you have a question on our run sheet, and we talked about why Biden didn't do anything about TikTok and let Trump come in and take over on that discussion even while Biden is still in office. And I think the question of, you know, as Biden has gone to bed tonight, the last night as president, and tomorrow, you know, his duties are over, what his legacy will be, I think stories like this are going to come out more and more. That we're going to hear that he was not running the country, that they knew long before the campaign got going that he was not fit.
I don't know that they didn't know before 2020, Clint.
To me, he seems sharper. If you talk about the late 2019 and 2020 campaign, to me, like, he's not, I mean, he wasn't a spring chicken, but nowhere near what it has become. And what it became last year during the campaign, right? So I'll hear you on that they might have known even back then, but they really knew a year ago, you know, 7 months before he dropped out. And this is just one story of many that I think are going to come out of where other people, like, Mike Johnson's a great guy. Like, you can say he's on the other side of the aisle, but he is not on the other side of the aisle to make up a story like this.
Correct. To
where he genuinely believes he's a lawyer. He's a Speaker of the House, a representative from Louisiana, and he firmly believes that the President of the United States signed an executive order that he did not know what the content was, and very well may have been misled to what the content was of what he was signing.
And that goes back to what I said before when you paused it. This just is another reason for that war that we didn't need. And I'm not going to be able to understand the full cultural differences between a Ukrainian and a Russian. I'm not ever going to be able to understand that. I'm not ever going to be able to understand all the underlying things that go into that. But what I can see is we are literally sending billions of dollars, and we have sent, I don't know what the grand total is going to end up being. Last time I looked, it was well over $500 billion to fund a war. For what?
Yeah.
For what? And it frustrates me, but then this is just another notch on the board of, like, why the heck I'm so thankful that Trump won the election.
Yeah.
And this, to me, goes to a bigger point. I realize that Trump won, and Trump was the face of the presidency, but this, to me, was a victory over, I don't want to say evil, but like that's what it appears to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, his legacy is tarnished. He has to outlive the laptop scheme, the Russian collusion stuff, and now all the stuff that they put on, like a Tulsi Gabbard, is just egg on the face of every single person who supported him.
Yeah. I think what we will find, because history does tend to look back more fondly on presidents than when they first leave.
It's going to be a long time.
I think it'll be a long time, but I think that if President Biden gets anything to his credit, it will be that he was taken advantage of, which is not his fault. That was a double negative. but I'm saying that's.
Yeah,
I think
I know what you mean.
I think there's going to be more ill feeling toward VP Harris and the DNC and the rest of the Democrat machine more so than President Joe Biden.
And I think as more stuff like this comes out, he's not being in that interview. I watched and listened to pretty much the whole thing. Never once does he say something that I thought, "Ooh, that's vindictive," or "Oh, that tone was not good," or "Man, he's just out to go out for the Democrats." I think he's genuinely concerned about the human. And I've said this many times. I don't know if I've said it on here. I think Joe Biden, the human, is a good person. Like, you watch some of the things that he said in the past, and I just think that he got caught up. And I feel sorry for him as a human being. It's sad to watch.
One of the reasons why I believe everything Mike Johnson just said in that interview is true is because I never heard it in the campaign.
That was going to be my next point.
Yeah, if that was a gotcha story that had been embellished, to make Joe Biden look bad, you would have heard that and seen that in the campaign, but you didn't. It's the week before Trump's inaugurated, and that's when this story is coming out.
And it's hitting the news the day before the inauguration.
Yeah, just to let you know, like, this is the bullet you dodged, America. Because this is what was actually going on.
Well, and then did you see...
As a puppet.
Somebody from the EPA was caught under camera and undercover of saying that they've been throwing gold bars off the Titanic to different people, billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating thing to me. I rewatched an episode. I can't remember which JRE it was, but it was talking about could you give every American a paycheck? What amount of money could you give? Could you give every American $200,000? I think that's what the number is, $40 billion. That's easy.
Yeah.
That's more than what they've sent in what we spend in defense. I mean, so you think about that. So my wife was listening as I was scrolling through something, and she's like, $200,000 a person or $200,000 a taxpayer? And I was like, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but I mean, you could easily give a lot of money to a lot of people for the amount of money that we spend and send elsewhere. And it's just crazy to me. And I think that that's going to be his legacy. I think it's going to be the old man that got taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And it's going to be story after story after story of that right there.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, is there any effect of it? I hear all these people calling for, well, these people got to be thrown in jail. And I hear you and I get that. But the amount of chaos that could be caused by going back and revisiting every executive order that Joe Biden signed and maybe all these official communications and official acts that he did would be complete chaos if it turns out those are not legitimate. And so I get it. But I'm pretty much on the fence about, I lean more towards clean slate it, noon tomorrow, Trump is the 47th president of the United States, and we move forward and move on. I'm not for going back, and even though I understand the case of people who want to.
So I just happen to have something pulled up about executive orders. That would be 129 executive orders. That's just the total amount of executive orders.
Yeah, I think he signed more than any other one-term president, right?
No, Trump signed 200, just as a perspective. So this is, let's see, what was the last one? That was Carter was one term, yeah?
Yeah.
So he signed 320.
Okay.
Ford 169. Calvin Coolidge signed, well, FDR signed a lot, but World War II, right? 3,728.
Jeez Louise.
Calvin Coolidge 1,203.
I remember what it was.
Woodrow Wilson 1,800.
That VP Harris cast more tiebreaker votes in the Senate than any other VP,
I believe
substantially.
it. I believe it.
So yeah, that's what I saw.
I hope. This is what I hope. I hope that we clean slate it for the sake of the country. And we don't forget this, right? We don't forget what happened in COVID. We don't forget what's now happened with the Ukraine and Russian war. We don't forget the chaos that some of the things that has ensued over the last 5 years, essentially.
Yeah.
And I hope Trump doesn't prosecute those people, even though I really believe that a lot of them did do something criminal.
Yeah.
I believe that wholeheartedly.
Right.
And I don't know that I can be convinced otherwise.
Yeah.
But just like he didn't go after Hillary,
Mm-hmm.
and even though they went after him,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that he doesn't.
Yeah, I think that the constituents that he has brought on board, like, you know, we could talk about Trump effect, but you just think about, I saw this today, and there's a Trump effect started as soon as the election was called. Like, he's not even in office yet, and you see things begin to be changed.
Correct.
But not only that, looking back just 4 years, I saw something the other day. It was a clip of Snoop Dogg saying anybody who performs at Trump's inaugural is words we can't say on the podcast.
Correct.
Back whenever he won in 2016. And now Snoop Dogg is performing at one of the balls. You know,
I saw Fat Joe did as well.
8 years later.
Yeah.
So that just lets you know that, hey, it took 4 years of Joe Biden, VP Harris, and whoever was running the government during that time for even very liberal people who don't like Trump to say, actually, it's a pretty good thing. And so I think the people that Trump has brought into the big tent of Trump 2.0, I think those people are more likely to stay and more likely to go forward if Trump also goes forward.
Yeah, and transitioning into the stuff that happened this week with like Hegseth and Bondi. So I want to talk about Hegseth first because that was kind of the most prevalent one. I mean, man, I think I texted you about Elizabeth Warren and the things that some of the things that she was saying about him. I mean, that's not saying hasn't made any mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. And I wrote it down. Senator Mullen from Oklahoma, calling out other senators who have come to work drunk, or had an affair on their wives, and like, I'm not saying Hegseth is perfect. I'm not saying any of these guys are perfect, including Trump, including J.D. Vance. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as Hegseth was sitting up there, I had it on my screen in the room. My students could hear it. They were working on a project, and so they could hear it. And they were like, I don't understand why they're being so vicious towards him. And I didn't really have a great answer for him. And like Elizabeth Warren just brutally attacking him. I don't want to say brutally, but verbally attacking him. And it sends a wrong message, in my opinion. And like some of the things that were being discussed, I don't feel like he was even able to get his point across. So one of the things that was being discussed quite a bit was, do women need to be in combat divisions? Okay. He was arguing that the standards have lowered to allow women to get into those divisions. If a woman can meet the same standards, then they deserve to be in there. So then it got me thinking, like,
that was Hegseth's opinion.
Hegseth's opinion. And he's written it in a book. Yeah. He came on several podcasts and said that not that they should not be allowed, but they have to meet the same standards.
Yes.
Under DEI, we've changed the standards, and we have to go back to the way that it was.
Yeah.
So then it got me thinking, like, well, me personally, like, I think a woman can do anything a man can do. I'll say that. Right. However, I don't know that I want women serving in combat divisions on the front lines. It doesn't really have anything to do with me being a sexist. It has to do with the fact that I don't think they need to be there.
Yeah. And I think for me, I feel differently depending on what their job is. And maybe that's
okay. Let me rephrase it. I don't think they need to be on the front lines.
Infantry.
Because here's the thing. Most cultures in the world do not see women the same way that Americans see women.
Yeah.
If a woman is kidnapped,
right,
the atrocities that are going to happen, most of the time, if a man is kidnapped, they're just going to kill him. Mm-hmm. If they kidnap a woman, it is going to be the worst things imaginable that they're going to do to them.
Right.
The worst.
It is different as a society, and you just got to kind of think this through to the end. If someone's listening to this and they're on the different side of that argument, think this through to the end. If a female infantry person is taken as prisoner and then put on video under torture, society and people are going to feel differently about that than they would if it was a male soldier.
100%.
Just 100%. So that's something to avoid. So I think I'm with that on infantry.
Now, do they need to be on the? That's where I'm at. Like, and I clarified that with a conversation I was having this week with someone who is a female, and I said, like, that's my point, right? Not that they can't be in the military. That's not what I'm saying at all.
100%.
But when you look and you read about other cultures at the way that they treat women is dramatically different than how we treat women here in America. Now, does that mean that all is equal? No. This is a pigeonholed, narrow scope conversation that I think I'm having here. So it's just hard for me to even wrap my brain around that. And so I don't understand why some people who are supposed to be leaders in our country don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, a thought that I had whenever I was listening to his interview and when that subject was coming up is another Taylor Sheridan show, Lioness. The season
that first episode.
Well, season 2 has a female helicopter pilot, Army helicopter pilot, and so it's like, okay, in this respect, that helicopter can be shot down. That female pilot can still, because when I was listening to this interview, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'm okay with that. But carrying a rifle and charging in on the front lines in infantry, I'm not okay with. And so I was trying to reconcile what the difference is between that, because that helicopter pilot can still be shot down and still be taken prisoner. So the original issue that we have with female serving in combat on the front lines still exists, no matter what their job is. But I'm torn on it, right? Because at the end of the day, you still, like, if somebody really wants that job, you know, you hate telling somebody who wants to serve their country in that way, you can't. But I'm also okay with there being some reasoning behind it. But I am torn, and that interview, that Senate confirmation hearing, was really, really telling to try to, like, wrap my brain around. Okay, I feel this way. Why do I feel this way? Is it legitimate? So still working on that.
And I think the other point that he made about 5-star generals or generals not being able to go into the defense industry as a civilian for quite some time. I think I wrote it down. I think it was 10 months or 10 years. I can't remember. It was 10 something.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that, right? You shouldn't be able to leave. It's no different than I believe that the Congress shouldn't be allowed to inside trader, right? Inside trades. It's that to me is a common sense thing, right? You shouldn't be able to leave the military and then the next day step into a role on the civilian side. That's very similar to what you just did.
I think definitely you shouldn't be able to come back, which I think is probably more difficult to resign your commission from the military, go to the private sector, and then come back. Because to me, it's a bigger issue if you come back, because then you're in the military making purchasing decisions for a company you potentially used to work for.
Correct.
So that...
But how is that any different? If you were in the military and you go to the private sector and you're making...
Because then you're selling to the government.
Okay.
But you still have friends there. I mean, you know, you still have your military buddies, but also you're valuable to that company because you've been on the inside.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, checks and balances for money, basically, procurement and contracts need to be in place.
The rest of the confirmation hearings relatively uneventful.
Pam Bondi was good.
I think she'll do.
I like how she pushed back.
I do too, and I liked how she told one of the senators, "I'm not doing your homework for you on the 14th Amendment. I'm not doing it for you.
Yeah.
It's not my job."
Yeah, that guy.
If anything, it made me dislike those people even more.
One, like Connecticut Senator Blumenthal, that was on the Defense Committee, who was interrogating her, having the hearing for Hegseth, right? Like, here's a guy that when he was running for Senate,
what's your favorite sound?
First of all, I love that torch sound. Is a guy who's one of the most wealthy senators in the Congress. He's worth over $100 million, and he's had a lifetime of public service. Before he was a senator, he was Attorney General in Connecticut. Okay, so that's this guy. He also lied about serving in combat in Vietnam and was caught in his 2010 Senate campaign.
Wait, is his name Tim Waltz?
Yeah, same exact thing. He said, I might have misspoken. What he did was he got 5 draft deferments during Vietnam. Then he joined the Marine National Guard, which guaranteed he would not be. He served in Washington, D.C., and like guaranteed he would not be actually sent to combat. But when he was running for senator, he said he was served in combat in Vietnam. And then when it came out, like, no, you didn't. He's like, I might have misspoken about that. And the great people of the state of Connecticut elected him in 2010 and again in 2016 and again in 2022. Like this guy who lied about military service, who is now able to question a nominee for Secretary of Defense. How backwards is that?
It's very backwards.
Yeah, you are. And he was one of the ones, like Elizabeth Warren, questioning Pete Hegseth's character and his past. Like, well, Pete Hegseth actually served in combat. So when he says he did, he actually did. Like, you lied about it.
Yeah, and I don't have much else to add to that.
And Pete did what a lot of nominees have done year over year. They just sit and take it, like answer the question, stay calm, and he did that, and that was fine. Pam Bondi did not. She talked back, you know.
I meant to write his name down. The older gentleman with the glasses.
Oh yeah, you're narrowing it down now.
God dang it! He was one of the confirmation guys.
Which one? Which one?
It was a financial institution.
No, I mean for Bondi or Hegseth or who?
No, it was one of the guys being nominated. It was a fine. I'll look it up. Hold
Okay.
on.
But yeah, you know, she basically said, I'm not going to be bullied by you. I'm not going to do your homework. Like that is uncharacteristic of a lot of confirmation hearings. But I liked hearing it. And it, to me, like the attitude was, we won. Like, you can question me, but I'm getting this position. Like, we have the votes. And she was very confident in her questions.
Treasury Secretary.
Oh, yeah.
Scott Bessent.
Uh-huh.
Bessent. This was his third time running or being nominated. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like he was very much like, look, he nominated me, so either put me up there or don't. Yeah. Like, I don't.
This guy's a hedge fund manager.
Yeah,
he can go and make a ton of money, like, you know.
Well, and I was curious. Do you know much about him?
Yeah.
Okay, so does he have a wife or a husband? Okay. So he said in that confirmation hearing that the first time that he was nominated that he was not allowed to receive the nomination because he was gay. Is that true?
I don't know. I don't know when the first time he was nominated was.
And I didn't when they introduced him, you know, he's reading his thing or whatever. It said, because I did write this down, it said that he is widely respected as the world's most foremost international investor, geopolitical, and economic strategist in the globe. Why in the world are we questioning this man?
I know. Like, who on that committee knows more than Scott Bessent?
No one.
Right.
No one. And I don't know this guy. Like, I hadn't done
his was also pretty uneventful, which you would expect. I listened to almost all of Kristi Noem's.
Here was the point that I was going to make about him.
Yeah.
When it was, oh, Jesus, my brain is tired. The guy from Massachusetts, the senator from Massachusetts, who's the libertarian.
Yeah. Bernie Sanders.
Sanders was questioning him about oligarchies.
He's Vermont, though.
Vermont, sorry. I knew you'd have my back on that one. He's questioning about oligarchies. And he was like, you know, Trump has so many billionaires in his pocket that he's helping, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And he says, well, didn't the president just give the Medal of Freedom to George Soros? And the place went silent.
Yeah.
Like, and he kept pressing. Like, he's like, I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah. And
he just nodded his head just like that. He just goes, and like, how do you respond to that? Because he's not wrong. He's exactly right.
And that's what I mean. Like, I like a lot of times, because again, politics nerd, I watch these every time they come around, and just because I'm a politics nerd, and it's so much easier now because used to you had to turn on C-SPAN. Now you just pick up YouTube and you can find it everywhere. Yeah, so it's super easy to find, and so normally you watch these and you're yelling at the TV when they're going on, like, say this, you know, what about this, and they're just, you know, yes, thank you, Senator, you know, thank you, yeah, what and. You want to be respectful. It is a high office.
Correct.
But I did like no, we're not taking that.
Yeah. Well, and Rubio, I liked some of his responses as well. Marco Rubio, who is running for Secretary of State, or who's being nominated for Secretary of State. when they're in that room and those protesters stand up, like, what do they think they're going to gain by that? And he kind of made a crack about it. He was like, well, heck, even I get some in foreign languages because a guy was speaking in
I'm
Spanish.
the only one that gets bilingual protesters.
Yeah, bilingual protesters. And so I think that those were, Hegseth's was obviously the most.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder if they did that on purpose, if they put him at the front, like if that was going to be the first one because they knew it was going to be contentious. If Trump knew, hey, this is going to be a little bit hard, like, so let's put this one first. And then I think Tulsi's is going to be a little bit.
I think hers will be a little bit. I think Kash Patel will be a little bit.
Yes, but I think they're going to bookend those. I think Hegseth first, Tulsi and Patel at the end, and everybody in between is going to be okay.
Yeah, Hegseth is going to get confirmed. His last
They had the numbers today. I saw that.
His last holdout was Joni Ernst. So he's going to be confirmed. I mean, I don't know. I feel like, so Cornyn was saying on a local news station here, they have the votes for everybody. They don't feel like anybody's in jeopardy. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see some pushback on Kash Patel or,
Yeah, and I don't know. Are you signed up for John Cornyn's email chain or whatever? I got that today. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't read it.
He basically said that everybody's going to get confirmed, and I think that's probably good. I think that you saw a lot of that posturing. Are you going to support Trump if he orders the military to take out protesters? Well, I'm not here to do what ifs.
Yeah.
Hegseth said that multiple times. Bondi said that multiple times. Rubio said it a handful of times. Like, if the president orders you to do this and you think it's unconstitutional, well, no, I'm not going to do that. So I think there's a lot of posturing. I wanted to make one other point before we move on to the next topic. I don't know if you happen to look at the cabinet that was made during 2020. They look very different than this cabinet. And that goes back to showing that Trump 2.0 is not going to be the same.
And he talked about that on Rogan. He said when I got to Washington, he said something like, I'd never even stayed the night there. I'd stayed only a handful of nights there. I usually just went back to New York. And so when he got to Washington, he was genuinely there for the first time, learning the town, learning the people. And he listened to some people and took some advice from some people about how to build out his team. That was bad advice. And so, because the thing that came out about, Kelly and as his chief of staff, like, that was not a good pick and did not lead him to make good decisions for people. And so he said that on Rogan, like, this next time, I've already been there now. Now I know what to do. I know who to pick. I know how to do this.
Yeah, it definitely feels, it's like with that interview that came out today with Mike Johnson. I don't know when that was recorded. I caught it yesterday. It's like a breath of fresh air. I just think that it's tomorrow. I just feel like, I'm glad they moved it indoors, by the way.
Yeah.
They say it's about the weather, but then there were also, like, apparently so many threats that they didn't feel like they could safely protect everyone. And I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. And
maybe the bad weather is just a blessing for the security, because I really believe that Trump is going to walk. He may still walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't know. But I believe that that's just a blessing that they didn't have to do, that they're not even gonna have to worry about it.
Hey, I don't like it, so to speak, but if you're telling me that you can't guarantee that you can protect him tomorrow, do it. Move it inside. That's fine. Because that's the last thing we need on someone who's already had multiple attacks just recently.
I did see that they had put a concrete barrier basically around Washington. And I think historically speaking, you said it last week, this is the first one since Reagan. It's been held indoors, and I think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. It's like the old George W. quote we said probably a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the attacks in New Orleans is, to be effective, we have to be right 100% of the time.
Correct.
Terrorist has to be right once.
Right. So the Israeli Gaza or Israeli Hamas ceasefire, who gets credit for it? Trump or Biden?
Biden and his Democratic administration will take credit for it, but no one outside of just their hardline supporters will give them credit. Everyone will give credit to And I even saw today the 3 hostages that were reunited with families today were giving credit to Trump and Israel. That's who those families were speaking out about already. So, and not to mention the Mike Johnson clip we just saw really tells you how much do you think Biden actually had to do with that. And I think the more that comes out, the more that people are going to realize the good things that have happened during this interim times from the election to the inauguration are going to be put squarely at the feet of Trump to get credit for the Trump effect that's already having an effect.
And I think when Trump said that if the hostages are not returned by day 1, there will be hell to pay.
Yeah.
And that's exactly that's his quote.
Yeah.
That was his quote. He
Exactly.
said that to the press corps on that long interview that he had a couple of weeks, I guess it's been a couple of days ago.
It's very similar to Carter. When the Iranian hostages were released, as soon as Ronald Reagan said, "So help me God," like, no one gives credit to Carter for that. It's Reagan had said, "You're going to let these people go as soon as I take office." And as soon as he said, "So help me God," on January 20th of 1981, after 444 days, those hostages were released.
Yeah. And that's another such a complex conflict. I remember the first time in college, my professor was like, "All right, we're going to discuss the Israeli-Iranian conflict." And he hands us this book. This book was like this thick, right? It's like this thick. And so then he was like, "Okay, now this is your guide." Now the guide was about this thick,
Okay.
but it was like the size of a textbook.
Yeah.
And it was just name after name and timeline order of like, okay, this person caused this and this person caused this. And it was like, have you ever seen that book where that image where it's like the Bible connected each other and it's like all these different lines? That's how I felt reading this book. And so like when my students ask like, okay, what's caused this? I'm like, your guess is as good as mine, because it's so complicated and it's so intertwined and the cultures are so different and they're all compacted into this very small geographic area.
Yeah.
And it's so complicated.
Yeah.
And it goes back hundreds and thousands of, not hundreds of thousands of years, but hundreds and thousands of years that you can't even begin to put one. It's not much different than the than the Ukrainian Russian war.
Right.
It's too complex for a simple
So
answer.
much history there. It's not, one thing happened a couple of years ago and then all of a sudden, no, it's
Hundreds of years is being brought back up.
all of the history. Yeah.
And so it's so complicated. And there's always going to be conflict, always. And it just determines how much do we need / want to be involved. And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm glad that it appears that this current Hamas-Israeli conflict is coming to an end, or at least a short-term ceasefire.
Yeah.
But man, it could. I mean, it's just a small. It's still always going to have that little bit of coal there, and if you throw gas on it, it'll just explode again.
For sure.
One last thing. Did you see they banned Red 40?
Yeah. Red. Yeah.
So red dye.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to talk about this in aspects of like my grandfather used to be so against any type of artificial flavoring, artificial sweetener, artificial anything. And everybody we kind of was like, oh, that's just grandpa, like he took so many vitamins. This is like in the 90s. Okay. So he would carry around the old film black bottle with a gray lid. He would carry that around and it would be full of vitamins, folic acid, all these different types of vitamins. And he would take them every night. And it turns out he was probably right about all of that.
Yeah.
As we move forward in what appears to be very, very harsh things that are in our diets and things that are all wrong. And
the funny meme that I've seen is it's midnight on January 20th. And you go to get a Pop-Tart out of the pantry and it shows RFK standing there just very dimly lit, light. It's no more. But it was the ban this week was red. I just looked it up to be sure. It was red dye 3.
3, correct.
So, which
Did I
is
say 40?
You said 40.
I'm sorry.
Which in our home, we have banned Red 40 because, listen, there are plenty of people who will say it's the worst stuff in the world, and there'll be plenty of people who say, like, you're full of it, it's fine. We have seen an active change in one of our kids when they don't have it.
Yeah.
And we have friends that are good friends of ours that have done the same thing and seen the same results.
Same.
So I started it one day with grocery shopping, and it took a little longer because I was having to look at stuff. And like, I was like, well, so everything, like, if, for example, you just look at all the different foods and see what's in it. And I was surprised by some of them. I was like, oh, that strawberry drink that our kids really like, we're not going to be able to. I looked at it, I was like, no, it's natural flavors only. It's like 5 ingredients. And I'm like, okay, like, we're buying this stuff that's on the good list. So we took it Red 40 out anyway already.
Yeah.
Which is challenging, but you find some foods that have kind of already come along those lines. And we shop at Costco, and Costco has a lot of organic options. And I never thought I would be that guy, but now I'm that guy because I've seen a change in my own kids. The side effect of that is just more expensive.
Yeah.
It just costs more.
And here's the thing. So in my family, my brother was allergic to red dye. It just gives him horrible headaches.
Mm-hmm.
And then my daughter, when she was little, she got ear infections all the time. Well, this has been 15 years ago, 16 years ago. So the antibiotic they gave was a red color dye.
Uh-huh.
Well, she got horrible headaches. So she was like pulling her hair out. We're like, what is going on? So finally our pediatrician was like, hey, let's try this different antibiotic doesn't have red dye in it. And then it comes to find out she was we never had her tested, but we've always limited. I don't want to say we have gone as far as saying eliminated it, but we always have limited the amount of red in our diet. So it's not really ever been a big issue in our home.
My question is that Trump effect? Because the study that the FDA referenced, because it's part of, there's a law that says they cannot allow a food additive that has been proven to cause cancer. And then they quote a study that was years and years ago that says red dye 3 causes cancer. They've had that study forever. But now, this week, they're like, no, we're going to ban it. So is that Trump effect where they know that their new HHS secretary has this is going to be a priority? So they're just getting ahead of it, doing things they should have done before already because they had the study already before. But now they know it's actually about to be enforced. And there's going to be somebody at the head doing this job who actually cares about their job.
Yes.
Which is crazy because they're not even in office yet.
No.
And there's already benefits.
Yes.
You know.
And it'll be one of the things that has been in the educational world for a very, I'd say the last 10 years, is the dramatic effect of things like autism. Like, where is this uptick in autism coming from?
Yeah.
Is it vaccines? Is it the food that we're feeding? Is it a combination of the two? So I when my daughter was getting ready for college, I just happened to come across her vaccine record. And I've never been the guy that's like, "Ooh, don't take vaccines. You need to take your vaccines," right? We've always done that.
Yeah.
But then when COVID comes along, I'm like, "Hey, like, whoa, let's
Yeah.
look at this." And like she had well into the teens the amount of vaccines, and I didn't even think about it. Like, it wasn't that I didn't even pay attention, right? I didn't even have a cause to question those things. But now that I have family members who are now having children after post-COVID, it's a conversation at least.
Right.
Like, hey man, I think you should probably research this a little bit more than what I did. And your kid is now potentially going to get 5 to 8 more vaccines than my daughter did, who's a senior in high school.
Yeah.
So, hey, like, maybe you need to research this a little bit more. Not that I'm saying, hey, don't take it, but what I'm saying is, hey, look into it.
Right.
For sure. Because like that would never have been a thought that I would ever have had.
That's the approach we took. I used to walk into that with, anytime you talk about anything organic or not vaccinating, things like that, I always like, that's just hippie talk. And like, I would just dismiss it from the front end. These days, I'm at least looking into it, doing my own research and forming my own opinion, and not just walking in, with a preconceived notion about it. And that's been helpful. And we've seen a change. So it's like, you can have any opinion you want about Red 40, but if you have an ADHD kid who's bouncing off the walls, give it a shot. just try it. Trust me. I mean, maybe that's not the issue. Maybe it's something totally different. Maybe they just eat sugar all the time, and that's not good either. But we made that change, and we saw that effect. So you're not going to be able to come and tell me that it doesn't work, because that's the only thing we changed.
Well, and I
Everything
think
else
too,
in
it
the
has to do
environment
with
stayed the same.
moderation.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of pushback against technology and then diet, right?
Yeah.
So, I'll speak for us. We just try moderation. Like, okay, you can't have that whole pack of Skittles, but you can have some of them.
Yeah.
You can have some of them, and we don't need to eat packs of Skittles every single day.
Yeah.
Right? One is fine. One small snack pack is fine.
Yeah.
It's when you get into where that's all you're eating.
Yeah.
You're eating Fruit Loops for lunch, then you're eating a strawberry Pop-Tart, or not but for breakfast, and then you're going and eating a Lunchable that is full of dye, and then your dinner is consistent of also horrible artificial foods. That's just bad for you. Like, that's not just bad for your mental health, but that's also bad for your physical health.
Exactly.
And so, like, we have conversations in our house. Like, one of our daughters really loves toaster strudels. Right? That's fine. Okay, you can have that. But then also you need to have like a piece of bacon or a piece of ham or some other type of protein to go into that. That was never a conversation in our house. And it just before the last 5 to 10 years, it was never really a conversation.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's a conversation that's happening more and more.
That's the same for us. It's something we're actually considering and talking about. Instead of just going to the grocery store and buying the normal food you buy for a family with kids and eating the normal meals you eat, now we're actually thinking about it, looking into the ingredients on it. And when I see a product that only has a couple ingredients, I'm like, okay, like that's like a big thing for us is like our kids like chips, right?
Right.
And there's so much crap in chips. But again, I want to say we shop at Costco. Costco has a couple, and you buy it's a big bag. You're not going to get the little individual packs, but they have a big bag, and it's like potatoes, sea salt, and canola oil that it's fried in. Like those are your ingredients for those chips, right?
So back to my grandfather, he used to buy this. It was called Old Windmill, and it was just it's called the Dutch Chip Company or something along those something along those lines. And all it was is potato chips and salt.
Yeah,
that was all it was, potato and salt.
Yeah,
and it was the only one that you could buy, and you could only buy it at Piggly Wiggly in Wisconsin. Like, we couldn't buy it down here. Like, it didn't. It not that it didn't exist, but you couldn't buy it. And so I just remember how there was so much flavor in those chips. Now I thought it was the aura of my grandmother or my grandfather's house. Turns out, no, it was just actual real food.
That's the thing. And that's what I mean. Like, so using that as an example, like, so we'll buy those chips and our kids can eat those chips in moderation again, because it's still fried potatoes, right? You just don't eat that for all day. But if you look at the back of a bag of Cheetos, look at all the crap that's in Cheetos. It's like an ingredient list that long. So we don't have Cheetos. And I'm a clean freak and Cheeto fingers, and I have little kids. So there's multiple reasons why we don't have Cheetos in our house, but that's one of the big ones.
I like Cheetos, so I can't really say we do have some Cheetos in the house.
In moderation.
In moderation. But we do buy the baked ones. You know, so like, even though it is a Cheeto, or like my son really likes barbecue chips, and that's horrible.
It's just baked chemicals. It's just instead of fried chemicals.
But again, it goes back to moderation.
Yeah.
You can't eat 3 bags of that.
Yeah.
Right? You can have a sandwich, a ham sandwich with all the things that are nutritional in that, and then you can have the chips that go along with it. We don't have that issue in our home, and so therefore, like, we've just really been moderation is key, and making sure that you know what to do.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about tomorrow.
Yeah,
like, I'm so excited. I think that this is a.
Will you get to watch? Well, we're
off school. We're off school. We have a dentist appointment, so I'm a little. Yeah, that was bad planning on my part, but.
Hopefully the dentist will have it on.
Yeah, well, it's a pediatric dentist. Usually they have the Disney Channel on, or
not
Disney
tomorrow.
Movies.
Tomorrow's Trump Day.
I'm gonna send a message and say, hey, we need to be playing.
If you want to keep my business,
they're probably gonna have a ton of kids there that don't want to watch it. But yeah, I'll definitely be tuned in. It's not until the afternoon, so I think the inauguration starts at noon, right?
No, it's 11. 11 our time, because noon that time.
Okay, so then it's not till in the afternoon. Okay, so we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. I think this is the first step of many steps that have already, small minor steps that have already happened, and this is the first big leap into a right direction. I hope we have nothing crazy happened. Yeah, and we can come back tomorrow and say, hey, or next week, and have lots of things. But check us out on YouTube. Check us out on TikTok. Woohoo!
Yeah,
Check
we're
us out on
back.
Facebook, Instagram. We're trying our best to stay on top of it. We're just two guys,
Yep.
but yeah, it's been fun.
Plenty to talk about next week. We'll have the inauguration plus everything he does on day one. We've kind of speculated what some of that's going to look like, so now we'll actually have it and see how the first week shakes out. It's not going to be uneventful.
No, it's going to be very
There's
eventful.
going to be a lot going on. We're gonna have a good chunk to talk about next week.
All right, see you next week.
See ya.